that Cheva Pudagan, the Gor, is in down to Lama pushing we are Carson or Senyama, or only a Puya de Liana Bue, Jik, those Yowoche and Pachimangabu, the Timishim, Medina Puya Johnson, the Anjik, Davy, Doki, Pua and Zadine Pua, Latina, Mobana, Angelia, Anjike, and J. Casote, Shidan Chevy, Jimabe, Abuyo, Pua Johnson, and Dine, Pui Delatine, Anjik, and that Pua Akarata, Duru, Corata, Denege. Sushi Dine Puya Johnson says. Zadine, that Cheva said, other Chunjuma, invasion of Puben, Dine Puya, Chezanche, the Yaya, George, Lucien, Yaman, Jik, Sausage Yaman Chevena, Lucien Yaya, to rest the Dinenza, on Lucien Yaman Chevores. Tango did just my Chunjuma to me, the Dimity Puma or Mendusene, on the ship, then Shaggy Maris Nambode, and the Ponson Puya, the Kale Habores, the other Chunjuan Juju Punitia, Yaria, Sunum the Yaria, Dungeon, or Dushin in Yaman Chevores, to narrow it in the song.
Good evening. So last time we concluded with illustration from Geshe Thubten Rabten, where he presented how in his own lifetime he started out by making offerings which were of not much value, not much material value, but by doing so regularly, he created the causes to later be able to give offerings of great financial value. What was being presented there is not to hold oneself back thinking, well, until I have something of great value to offer, I'm not going to make any offerings. Rather, in accordance with one's capacity right now, make offerings. And importantly, continue to do so in a sustained, regular way. Because in this way, through the accumulation of habituation as well as this of merit, then one's capacity will grow. And this is what's illustrated in this account, was the growing capacity of the practitioner through engaging repeatedly over a sustained period in their training.
Lama Goma Namji Yamna do Snawa, Dina Shinching Arjuna, Konzunavana Shinju do Sin Yamna Chegore Saji, Sungorwa Tini, Zada Cho Piedi, Susu Yungobola Raligo Mazo, Ya, and the Pueki Debatan, and the Konola Raligo, Resistant Choba Geshe Sadi, Ze Chunjun Shilmat Mena, Kunode, Pensenda, and Devachi, the Pubena, Sunum Chimbasago, which is the Lama Namidus Nyama dis Naware, and Dina Shin Janzina. Lama Goma now I Shinchina, Kondisheva, and Dushine, Yamna Jitubata, Jewores, Sungorva.
The purpose of Lama Tsongkhapa, including accounts such as this, is so as to offer an example for his students to follow. So what we see here is a lived example, an illustration of a practitioner who acts in terms of his material offerings in accordance with his capacity, but that limitations in terms of what materially he has to offer is amplified by what is of greatest importance, which isn't the material substance, but the quality of the motivation powered by the mind of faith. So therefore, we should take inspiration from this example, in particular, in terms of ensuring we make offerings regularly on a sustained basis, in accordance with our capacity, with an emphasis on the quality of our motivation and faith.
That in my shared that in a usual want to be Samba, Papi Gansa Namgida, Chubopita, and Digor Matisidua. Usual want to be Samba Chimba Namgi, Lu Pumtrado, Pumtradumur Jubatang, Lu Rere Liang. Laba Yadon La Soba Jude, Xing Tamji du June, Yawanamla, Gabo Dumur, Chobar Zenas.
Let's return to the text. I didn't bring the handout, so I'm not sure what page you're on in the handout, but in the published book, we're on page 113. So starting where we concluded last time, now we come to a sub-outline on how the Arya Bodhisattvas practice generosity. Great bodhisattvas who have gained control over mundane things emulate many hundreds of thousands of bodies and for each body again emulate hundreds of thousands of hands and so forth, and they appear in the Buddha field so as to make offerings to the victors for many eons.
onda 정신 semba papa 정신 semba 사당보 연제le 정신 semba papa 되게야 다 유제le 왕토바리 해서 왕토바르선 고랑들이야 부여 가르 유제 가르 부여에 나 고랑들이야 유제디 그 용거래스 용거라 가르 부비네 용거라 당한들이네 부여에 무슨나 저게 어디에 부여 많이 부여 말아 용거로 와다 유제le 왕토바 정신 semba 데네기 진배님은 초란뭐 졸람이 내가서 진배님은 조 나와인자 다 정신 semba 파베 가서 토요도 사당보 토요도 아니 제 유제를 왕토바리 고랑들 유제 가르 구분하라고 그래지 진짜 왕토베 semba 침보디 얘기 아니 야 피디가블이야 아니 류 아니 붐라모 주거래서 류 빠도메 붐라모 주 류제래라야다 류지레 라바 아니 야도 동라로 소유와 주의시네 얘네 아니 저와 그거래지를 저 피해 주다 얘네게다 류동라마도 붐라마도 주야 류제래라야 다 라바 야라 동라서 주의신데 라바래 아니 취비 제디도 두신 부다 빠도메 와자용으로 와다 어디는 그거래지래.
Thank you. In the handout, we're in the middle of page 134. So when bodhisattvas gain a direct realization of emptiness, and they attain the first bodhisattva ground, they have developed tremendous power through the quality of their realization of emptiness, powered and conjoined by bodhicitta. So such great bodhisattvas, referring to Arya bodhisattvas, have gained control over mundane things in the sense that whatever they wish to offer, they can offer. So offering substances of any type, they can acquire and offer. And the way they offer is also quite remarkable. They're not due to the power of their mind. They are not limited in the way that we are. And this is presented explicitly, that they can emanate many hundreds of thousands of bodies, with each body having hundreds of thousands of hands and so forth. In this way, they can make offerings to the Buddhas throughout the Pure Lands.
다 되네게는 부유들의 양 가오표가 신탐지도 주네서 다 상유스가 제 갈래 페이지 가지를 그 멤버지 아니 저 탐지의 페이지나 봐 아니 그거래지 신탐지도 주네서.
And so the place where these great bodhisattvas make their offerings is wherever the Buddhas are found, wherever the Pure Lands are of that individual Buddha, to all those Buddhas, offerings will be made directly.
되네 신탐지도 주네 개와남라. 내 안에 뒤 가제 불거서네 내 가와 두머를 쳐 봐. 제가 살직님 말 로직님만 봐 가와 근데 가와 두말이야도 신 불거래서.
And then in terms of for the time or duration, thus we see here is for eons. It's not just a one-off thing. It's not just a regular occurrence of offerings, but it's something done for eons.
지나단 내내게 전주선바 파베 강사디 얘기 난 지게 제헬이야 유제래 왕토바 인자다 유제 간데 표현에 될이야 가리 표현에 걸어서 유예돼 봐 채워 되네 그런저래 여자고 표현하고 그래 제자나 굴로 semja 탐지게 된도 전주선 요구냐나 하다 근데 대한 예 최선자 라시 마드베 선바 지게 어떤이 대표 따위 신비에 토네 어느 굴로 되네게 토네 부여다. 근데 안에 semja 탐지게 된도 부여 인자다 군노다 뭐 디찬이나 쓰는 야치 못사야. 안데는 부여기 가사이나 빠도메바 주시 부여자 되네게 빠도메바 류 빠도메바 류레레라 안지차 동라서 동나 야라서 주네 되네. 아니 유제 빠도메바 진제 부여가자 유제 빠도메바 다 군노 전에 군노 야치 빠도 야치와 딜레 하바 메바레 유지기 전에 되네게 유제 빠도메바레 안에 부여기 유대야 야와 상예 안에 초강나 슈바 차상래 탐지를 부여 야 뉴스 전에나 뉴바도메바 가와도물 부여하자 다 되네게 다 부여기 선함 되게 돼 지호지 같이 뭐 쇼차려 봐다.
then the motivation is also incomparable in that it's a motivation not only of bodhicitta, but a bodhicitta conjoined with the wisdom realizing emptiness. So what we see is that when these great bodhisattvas make offerings, they have an incomparable motivation, one of bodhicitta conjoined with the wisdom realizing emptiness. In terms of what they offer, it's whatever they wish. They are able to offer that. And then in terms of the place, is in the very abodes of the Buddhas. And for the time, it is for eons. And in terms of the number of bodies making the offering, that too is countless. So what this presents is that the way Arya Bodhisattvas are able to make offerings is beyond our conception, in particular from and beyond our conception in this variety of aspects, in terms of the quality of the motivation, the number of bodies or the emanations making the offering, the place, the time, the offering substances, all are beyond our conception. And from this one can then understand that the amount of merit that they accumulate is immense. Lama Tsongkhapa continues, but when those who are satisfied with only the semblance of excellent qualities declare, as for me, I do not hope to reach enlightenment in that way. This is nonsensical talk of people who know very little about the Dharma. To reread it again. But when those who are satisfied with only the semblance of excellent qualities declare. So this is referring to those who have some understanding of the Dharma, but they are still quite obscured to the vastness of our capacity. When they then say something like, as for me, I do not hope to reach enlightenment in that way, what they are expressing is politely, they're saying, oh, this is what a wonderful way that these great beings can act. But I don't really believe this. I have my doubts. So if such a person then, they are being polite, but and therefore saying, for me, I'm not sure if this is the way that I'm going to proceed. And really what they are showing is a lack, an actual understanding of the Dharma. What one would imagine with such a person, who they are, on one hand, they're saying politely, oh, very nice that such things can be done. but really from within, they have some doubt that this is the case. So they may express this as, this isn't my path, this isn't the way I want to go forward. But what they're really thinking is, I cannot conceive that one person can have hundreds of thousands of emanations, and those emanations can have hundreds and thousands of hands and so forth. This is beyond my comprehension. I have some doubt about that. So this person then is quite clearly mistaken. And this mistake comes from them not yet having come to actually understand the Dharma very deeply.
제자다 전주스마 파베디게 수연음 침보사야다 데니게 토네 안지 코로즈리아 띵띵해진다 니비 주베 주투바 연된 간에 여바디 코로 하모호와리 하모호엔자 취유 유신도 제자 취유 내서 차상 하모호 되었으면 취내서 되었으면 하고 고 말했어 대전 하모호엔자 그런 게 아니 다 자주선 다가스 김전 가야 마통하진 아디네다 용 아이 디다다 아이 있음비 도슬랍샤레스 지난 개와데 되는 연구를 때 되는지 나데 되는 dine jeje sangyu ko ma thugi simbe rewa mindu se de me saji de sa di korongi nizu hamo korongi jaju simbe nyamlen jeda da gewasa sunam tingye jin tubin tu nube yenden gare yeba de hamo ore koron chugi nizu chuchu ma da hamo wenza du slash bare dine enza dine gi jaju simbe wang to bale ya dine gi chebo be sunam sa de yo mare lamne jigo mare es orda.
So when it says here that this is nonsensical talk of people who know very little about the Dharma, you mustn't think that only people who know very little about the Dharma would say such a thing. What this is referring to is people who maybe in other aspects of the Dharma have good knowledge, but in terms of the incredible qualities of Arya Bodhisattvas, there they really do not know the Dharma. So in terms of what Arya Bodhisattvas can do and how it is that they can do such things, this is where the person is clearly displaying a lack of knowledge. So again, they may well have good knowledge in other areas, but here they're quite ignorant, and this is being expressed. So what is so unique about Arya Bodhisattvas is that their actual way of practicing, which comes about through the incredible qualities they have developed to become Arya Bodhisattvas. And in particular here, one would be talking about their power of concentration, that through their remarkable power of concentration, they can do things such as emanate hundreds of thousands of bodies, each with hundreds of thousands of hands. But this person, or a person with such a doubt, they have their knowledge is obscured, or their knowledge is limited in this area. Therefore, they have no such wish. They have no such wish to emulate such behavior because they cannot yet conceive such things as being attainable.
And just Papa Satan Boati. Oh, Lucadam, Depchilla, Gigi Pa. Depending on the Dirinity to a Sani to the member, the Necadam member, to see Gigilia, Depchilla, Lucadam to go. Depchil said together as a Yamdo. Gizilla, then the Dirinity to a Sani to the member, you see Chignarolia, Karma Chignarolia, Gadam to go.
So, for example, in the moment that, in the moment that an Arya Bodhisattva attains the first ground, Bodhisattva ground, they can emulate 100 emanations. And this emulation, sending out of 100 emanations isn't something that for them takes planning, preparation, and effort, but spontaneously or can instantaneously come about. So this is an incredible quality, not merely being able to emulate 100 emanations, but that it is so effortless. In a moment, effortlessly, 100 emanations can be sent.
지금 산이바 토론도 류 동자 주스 그래래. 개바지 류 가와지리야. 개바 가서 뒤시 끼지지리야. 류동 주스 그래라. 제산되는 인사다 고 야야저도 마마마. 제산되는 인사다 한쪽에 삼단에 끼지지레 미지 류자담 뎁질 주르세데 삼단에 당아줄을 주고 말바다 되니기 아다딩은이 아이 삼사라 전용으로 받아. 제산 되니기 제산 류자담 주요도 되는 류제래야 차 인자라서 주외네 되네 지게 요차요 되네 차를 취비 제 부이제 주지 부이 되네 지 요지 개체마 차거로.
And as the Arya Bodhisattva progresses through the Bodhisattva grounds, they can emulate vastly more emanations. So progressing from the first to the second Bodhisattva ground means that in a moment, they can send out 1,000 emanations. And as they progress further, this grows rapidly, being able to eventually send out hundreds of thousands of emanations in a moment. So this is really something quite out of the ordinary for us to come to comprehend. And this points to just how much is beyond our current level of experience. Hence, practitioners may well have doubts about something as a topic such as this.
나디네 개체비 경호보 신 최고 비단이야. 아니 최진 권조진리스 권조진이 도나는 그 손샤르스네. 뇌대 남레스 최바다 림조자와 개체모 간인바 대다보다 년지 대다 닝타바네 합의 삼바 초게 상계단 전유선바 남로 오스 시에 송바 따르자오스.
Then Lama Tsongkhapa quotes from a sutra, the Cloud of Jewels. Study whatever vast offerings and acts of service are explained in the sutras, and from the depths of your heart and with a supreme extraordinary attitude, dedicate them to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
어디에 남나 가르송을 세네 집에 권조진 나라 가르송을 세 어디에 남나야 안에 초피당 리 쳐바다 안에 미에 안에 지기 초피야다 림로지라 라소바 개체뭐 빠도면 송요래지 개체뭐 송요래 제산 디수도 강인바 대다보 다 년진 시대 되네기 초피나되게 봐 소소기 봐 지금 년시세 년바죠 년 도시 년 퇴바지네 안 되네기 담보 도신 초보도 퇴바지지 되네기 퇴바지비게 라야이네 되네기 초보에 랍야당 언데신 초보에 되게 도신에 퇴바지고래서 년진세야 돼 되게 남래 초보부야당 단남기 초보부야 아니 미 안지야래 초보부에 진실이야 판도림로제야 되네 야체 뭐 도수 지역에서 빠도 매고 손샤요래서 도신 대수차상 아니 다 년진세 년고래서
As the sutra says, study whatever vast offerings and acts of service are explained in the sutras. So the words literally is to listen. So listen or study to as the presentations by the Buddha on just what Arya Bodhisattvas can do in this particular context in terms of how they can make offerings, as well as then the causes that lead them to be able to make offerings in this manner.
아니네 년제 되네 대다 닝타바네 사베 산비 초기 상계단 전주선바 남로 오세데 지산 대다 시데 닝타바네 수수라랑기 나데네기 베네도데 남로 손셰베기 되네 산 초피단디 베지 소속이네 닝타반델 가와다 메바기야다 안델야 소속이네 되네기 디제소 라비아 안신 되네기 샹다게 되네 추푸 부여바데 지수 일하지야 되네 지수 일하지 닝타반에서도 소속이네 되네기 샹기 되네 추푸다 요새 야고레스비 닝타반에 지수 일하지야다 근데 랑기네 되네기 추푸다디게 바지 야고레스비 되네기 파 지게 가신 구비고네 돈일기 전에 소소이나 되네게 초부에 랍고 그래서 닝타반 랍두시네 랍고 그래서 닝타반에서
from the depths of your heart. So this here, when now having heard about what bodhisattvas, Arya bodhisattvas do, from the depths of your heart refers that from your heart joy will arise in just what the bodhisattvas are doing. Therefore, one rejoices in just what is happening now throughout the world systems, where the bodhisattvas are acting in extraordinary ways, such as making these incredible offerings to all the Buddhas, and rejoice in what they are doing, and thereby give rise to determination to in whatever way, whatever capacity we have, to emulate them as best we can in our own practice of offerings.
디네 자다 디네기 신기 디네기 추베 부다디게 파니 안데 직되는 되게 파니 안데리아 안데 제수이라 제야다 안데 디네기 추베 부다는 소수게 랍냠렌제야 안데 신기 디네 제바들 제수이라 제도 신ning 타반데 도시네 디네 합에 삼바 추베 지르다 디네기 합에 삼바스데 제 semje 탐제 대화의 temba semje 탐제 동안은 제제 다 군론기 잠니제 인제 삼바원시 합에 삼바세디 신 semje 탐제 동안의 제 자두게 삼바 군에 라제 합에 삼바 대 군에 라제 아니 상계의 제주 삼바 남노 오 시리 디네게 소수게 개와사 디네게 개와사 개와다 신기 디네게 개와 지 초밥 라다 미라서 나서베 초푸 초밥 빠르면 부비 개와서베 개와티게 차사 네네 심제 담지 상기고 봐 토비기 규르 쇼사다 심제 담지 안에 장주심 마게바티게 장주심 개바 개비게 규르 쇼사다 지사 상계단 장주심 반 남라 오세 상제 장주심 규르기 규르야 뭐고레스 규르야 뭐고레스
From the depths of your heart, then, one having now heard about how bodhisattvas, Arya bodhisattvas practice, to rejoice in what they are doing right now. And from this rejoicing, take that as motivation to stir you on in your own practice. Then as the verse continues, and with a supreme extraordinary attitude. So this refers to the wholehearted resolve, or the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. So this is the motivation that one conjures up here, that may all beings gain freedom from suffering. May all beings gain complete freedom from the sufferings of samsara in their entirety. May we all quickly become bodhisattvas and Buddhas too. And then the verse concludes with, dedicate them to the Buddhas and bodhisattvas. So this means the merit that we are accumulating by this process of rejoicing and generating the wholehearted resolve. By this merit, or this merit that we generate, we dedicate to the fulfillment of the goals of the Buddhas and bodhisattvas, which in brief is that all suffering beings quickly join them as fellow bodhisattvas and Buddhas.
안음이 다치게 전주심 개와 제 개와 쇼세데 지금 좀 말람 자요로 디나신 시고라 당한 쪽에 개와 사이티네 그런직 되니게 되는 손실백이 냠 최고 피다디게 파다 안 소속에 냠는지 아니 지게 또 최고 피야라서 받아 안 신기 최고 피 되니게 선 피비 개와디게 찾아 안에 가지래 디 개와 사바 될 때네 샘제 탐제 근데 지게 장주심 마게바디게 심 장주심 묘두게 개와쇼사다 디규 델레테네 장주심 개와쇼 데네게 개와사바 델레테네 개와디 델레테네 심제 탐제 묘두 사이고 바토바쇼 세디 소수게 개와사야다 신기 또 개와사바 지수 이런 개와디 차상 다 상계 장주심 비용 토비야다 심제 탐제 장주심 비고 토비야기 묘로 오야 근데 사이고 바도 묘로 오야 디스 오고레 에사지
This is a skillful way to practice in general, certainly in relation to when one hears teachings such as these, or in general. So when one accumulates merit, then one has, when one comes to then dedicating that merit, whether it's through offerings or other virtuous activities one engages in, dedicated so that all ordinary sentient beings who have yet to become bodhisattvas, may we all quickly become bodhisattvas, and and through this dedication of merit, may all those who are already bodhisattvas quickly become Arya bodhisattvas, and may those, through this dedication of merit, may all those Arya bodhisattvas quickly become Buddhas. So this then is a skillful way to dedicate all the virtue to dedicate the virtue that you accumulate through any virtuous activity. Then continuing to the next outline, by recollecting great compassion, establish other beings in this kind of practice. Just change one word in the translation. Out of compassion, establish other sentient beings in going for refuge as much as you can.
Simjen Shandalaya, and the Chig, Simjen Shag, Delia, Dunga Deva, Dunga Miduba, the Deva Duba, Jiba, Simjen Hamje, and the Korea Dunga Dreshe, Ya Tarba Tamjiki, go Toku, Chesa Simjen, Dunga de Dusian Taku, Simjen, Dunga in Nardusha, Simbeke, Simjen by Shelia, Beniji, Simbe Niji, that Niji Kunya Lanchene, that Consolia, and the Naranginiam the Chebana, Consolia, Jamdo, some Jamdo Gijo. Then Jamsu, Jabran Gijuji, then and Jamdu Lapche, and the council Kawasaju, Samje, Dushin, Niji Wangi, Shanyam, Simje, Shanya, Chinuki, Susuki, and the Chinuki, but Coronslia, Susan Nubi Kanjo between her, and the Jesu Jovalia, Zero Gregores in the contributor, Jamdu Giju, Jamdu Giju, and Jamdugi, Lapjala, Lapjugores, then it's ever in a consulate. Zevi Wangi, Garil Quebas and Jamdo Quebas, Consulia, Jabdo Giju, Jefso Georgio, Dine, Jamdo Lapjara to Slam, Lapju, Giavores, Susugi, Shala, Jeju Gores.
This outline then is the third of the 6 common or general precepts. In other words, the precepts or trainings that one engages in relation to all 3 jewels. So that's the meaning of the word common. And it's a precept or a training in that through training in this way, one's refuge becomes stabilized or stable and grows in strength. So that's the purpose of the trainings for one's refuge, to become stable and to grow in strength. This is the third of the 6 common precepts, common to all 3 refuge jewels. So here, what we are being guided in is that when we're going for refuge, we should not be doing so only for ourselves, but for the sake of all suffering beings. So when we generate refuge, we should do so conjoined with compassion. In other words, have as our very purpose for going for refuge that all beings, ourselves and all beings, gain liberation from suffering. One goes for refuge, ideally, one's not just going for refuge because one oneself wants protection from suffering, but one oneself, whilst wanting and needing protection from suffering, also through my growing spiritual development, may I help all beings gain protection from suffering. And here one has the aspiration, may all beings come to take refuge in the 3 jewels, recognizing that they have the capacity to guide each and every being to attain a state freed of suffering. So therefore, out of compassion, one goes for refuge for all other suffering beings who are in the same predicament as we ourselves are.
Chike Japsu Droege, Devashara Megan Jilia, and the Jagora Usu Jamna to go Maradi, the Pandoria Marwa. Chisna Susugi, Kola, 네 겸주요 거라 겹숨 겹 산유 건조 추고제 기리 건조 되네세스 겹세데 모드에체 안 될야 안 두스네 겹도 예 겹소 조다 되네제 두섬 당고에세 두셰베네 인규여바네 소수기 돌시에체 공 표주디기 되버여바다 인규여바나 다군 뉴버와다 그런 신 뉴버 판도 여되지자 되네네 두스네 건설이야 제시월마도 야직 되버 매바 예 되버 매바다 되네실이야 우주 계시나 되 이제 지금 말와다 예산 진유에서도 그런이야 되버 여바다 아주 신의 인규여바 그런이야 되네기 여바이나 안 될이야 안 어디다 점로 산유 점로 접수면에 낭비기다 산유 건조 추건조 기준 건조 숨 접수면 유리 접유 디레 지자다 접수 줘야 돼 될이야 안 지금 에 동아 다들 기분 뉴바의 컨슈머 요르스 이 시제도 제고래서 지 도스네 접수 줘다 디네에서 도 삼당 주제 콜리아 모드제 디네 이 건설 접수 점로 기주바이나 난 점로를 꽤 봐서 와도 꽤 봐서 되네 접루기나 다 두시는 점로 랍절 라고레스 지자다 랍절라야 될이야 되지 공도 슈바나시 데버 포야 단 개어주야 저든 어두신데 제고래서 지 안시에디 누구도 시에준냐면 제주변에데 안데 점로를 꽤 봐서야지 최고로 지자데 콘솔레 콜레 닝제 고양 대화 되거든 동원 미디어바데 지자데 인사다 콜위 동안에 줘셔 타 산조고 뭐 톱고고 뒤터발라 에 저와 자위규 점로를 띵고 봐 인자 콜레 점리냐면 제주구도 삼제자의 원기도 지네 시에시는 콜레야 띵제 고 점로리야 점슬린 주고레스 이네 라에 냠는 제샬레도 셰베나 제요 원게 니 진이 점로를 거 봐서 최고레스
Way then to understand this, the final words here, as much as you can, is rather, and the translation is fine, it's what it says, but its meaning is more in accordance, as best you can, or in accordance with your capacity. But the meaning is precisely now this, that those who have interest, you can answer their questions, and if their questions, the answers to their questions lead to them wanting guidance, you give that guidance to them. What it also refers to is you living as an example of someone who sincerely goes for refuge to the three jewels and is engaging in these trainings, in these precepts. By living as an example, others who have an interest may well turn to you, ask for guidance. And those who show an interest, one can then explain to them the causes for going for refuge, talking about the sufferings of samsara and the causes of that. And then secondly, how the three jewels can provide guidance so that one can transform one's own mind and thereby gain protection from suffering. So this is then the meaning of establish other sentient beings in going for refuge as much as you can. So that again, this as much as you can refers to from the side of sentient beings. If they have interest, then to the best of your capacity, you guide them. And so their interest comes from their side. From your side, you live as an example. And then when these causes come together, you can then present the causes for going for refuge and to whom to go for refuge, as well as then the various refuge trainings or precepts. So we looked at earlier the 6 individual precepts, those to adopt and those to abandon, and now these 6 common precepts. And one does so out of compassion. Compassion, wanting beings to also gain freedom from suffering, recognizing that they are in the same predicament as us, as being ordinary suffering beings looking for protecting refuge.
나 제외 원계세리 양지만 점도 마지투신 랍셔 점도 거시야도 양 나도 가브를 대응으로 왔다 네 신규에 나 연된 친구에서 배 다소식이 연대 유도 방아야다 되네기 토네 아직 샤리아 또 나의 연구로 왔다 또 시작할 때 내가 다사야 나냠는 제 되는 시작해서 되네 제 소야지 연구로 와 지산 되네 멤버체 나야다 and the Niki, Sosuke, Tam Yandrata, Sosuke, Gedai, Din Tam Yandrata, Naja, member, Sharia, Zero Sambi, Pembe, some Bashi Tony, the Dushin, and so on.
In the first part of the sentence, out of compassion, this is of great importance in this sentence because it points to the motivation. In order to suffer less oneself, one has to tame one's mind. In order to benefit others, one has to tame one's mind. In other words, one has to tame one's own afflictions. To the extent we've tamed our own afflictions, we can then help others out of a genuine motivation of compassion. If one hasn't or isn't subduing one's own mind, taking control of one's own mind, ensuring the afflictions are not dominating us, then in a situation where someone asks us a question about the Dharma, pride is likely to arise within us. And wanting to show off our knowledge, we will happily share our knowledge with them. But our motivation is afflicted. It's not one of compassion. So take this sentence then as further inspiration to subdue your own mind, reduce the impact the afflictions have.
And in my genius, genie to steal said, so she can be conscious. That's so she can sing but I can't sing but how could the part do she? So she never your Jizadi, the part my do she called the Lapje, Yams Lenchuburius. And Jera machine, so she sing you daughter jet, ticket, machine, but not retire or the names that can't continue so can't sing big, so she can never your body, and they call Lassan. Pembe sem bashi called Lucene, Lavores, Madon, so some machine Bajilia, singing Dovachin, Labna, not retiring, I would have said, do not initiate or genius at Genius at the mini, that's so to get Yamlen Jihankas, Nubala Chico, and Rangi ne, Gang Ship, Nuba, Nubadi, Gang Nubat Pala, Mother, Amordi, and the Jack, singing Dovachil Natigo, such a good one.
This, and then to the final part of the sentence, as much as you can. So this is the part that refers to in accordance with your capacity. So maybe best to look at this as being in accordance with both parties' capacity, yourself as well as the person expressing their interest in the Buddha Dharma. So if you have put effort into your Dharma practice, you will have acquired some knowledge. And you will have acquired experience based on that knowledge. Your mind will have transformed to some degree based on the knowledge you've gathered. Then your capacity is developed. You can actually have something to say, and what you say will not be mistaken, and therefore is much more likely to be of benefit. Whereas if one hasn't learned what one has heard, and then integrated it through meditation, then one will not be able to talk in a way that is unmistaken and authoritative. One may express what one feels the meaning is, but that is likely to be full of errors. So therefore also take this as inspiration to learn what you hear and to reflect well on it, to give rise to experience based on stable knowledge. Then one can help others in a way that is free from error, and then your wish to help will bear fruit.
And then dialabje dineshi, dinea, Lucene, Jawa Jija shi Jebadang, Guba Jijawa shi Tongyang, Gunjo Suma Denbadang, Deda dan Jizu Timbu, Gunjo, Cheba so Jay, Deda dan Mitin Begi, Bona Soba, Namba Tamji to Dindu Miruwe. Then
we come to the fourth of the 6 common trainings. Whatever activities you engage in and whatever your purpose, honor the 3 jewels and make requests to them, abandoning all other worldly methods. Whatever activities I've just added a few words in the first sentence. Whatever activities you engage in and whatever needful purpose you may see, rely on the 3 jewels and do what is in agreement with them, such as making offerings to the 3 jewels. But it is utterly inappropriate to rely in any way at all on what is not in agreement with them, such as certain practices in the Burn tradition. Consequently, you should trust in the three jewels at all times. Whatever activity one is engaging in, and whatever needful purpose you may see, rely on the three jewels. So here, start out your virtuous activities with cultivating a deep trust in the three jewels and making supplications to them. To tie this to some illustrations that came up last time, we spoke about the great benefit that comes from offering one's food first to the three jewels. So this would be a clear illustration when one's about to engage in a virtuous activity. So rather than merely just reciting some words, generate or regenerate your trust in the three jewels. Then make the offerings with supplications. In other words, offer the merit in various ways. Or before you engage in your daily activities or your work activities, generate a good motivation. I won't bring any harm, I'll only benefit, and so forth. But also do this with making supplications to the three jewels, requesting their ongoing guidance and inspiration, so that your activities throughout the day are in accordance with their teachings. I encourage you to follow this advice of calling to mind the three jewels before engaging in any activity, whether you are doing something of great purpose in your day or just the minor tasks that are required to sustain us, whatever it may be. Utilize these as opportunities to strengthen your habituation to virtuous ways of thinking. And in this way, everything that you do can be a Dharma activity, in that you are actively generating the minds of the Dharma before and then during your varying activities. So call to mind the three jewels, supplicate them that this activity you're about to engage in or what lies ahead of you, that it is done entirely in accordance with the Dharma. And that you generate the determination, I will not bring any harm to others, certainly through my physical or verbal behavior, but may my mind also be refrained from afflictions that express harm. And to the extent that I'm able in this endeavor, may I only bring benefits, in particular through my way of thinking, and where my expression of that interacts with others, may it only bring benefits. So in this way, before you engage in any and every activity, you generate this way of thinking. That activity becomes something that serves to strengthen your habituation to virtuous ways of thinking, and thereby leads to the accumulation of merit. But not only does it help your spiritual development, it means your interactions with others bring no harm. Your interactions with others, rather, bring benefit.
Dene jawa che di yo konju sumna den go go yo be sambe ke samlo yo sigra da jawa kan che be na konju sumna den go re sa sing de asim je so je je ma ji ke ne shen sue de konju sumna den go re be sambe ke da dene ke samlo ji yo ro de go ba chi ro wa se de rang gi shen gi jala ku ne so so ku ba ku ma je de thoya de go ba du ro dene ku ma ku ji thoya don da le yang konju sumna den go re be se dene re be se ji da do ba 예식으로 자와 지자와도 그거 지자와라고도 지난 되네 말에 다들이 가서 차상을 교나려 가르치는 군수 띵고를 시그 순고 말에 술을 순고를 쓴데 순하디 군주스만 접수 주변 점주 키는 접수로 점주 납절라 라바 가서 결혼서 시고다 결혼주기 나가 내가 가는 제베네 다 군주스미 접수 좋아시 군주스미 접리 납절라 막아와 제고래 시고다 너는 이거 되고 막아와 제고래 제산다 막아치 수되다 내가 가르치베네 신 소시오 거바다 내가 가르치베네 신뢰 체외도 뉴비게 자와 미제바 신뢰 누워 미제 체외 자와 미제바다 니신뢰 미뉴비 토네 주비하다 도시네 디바 맞제바 계획자다 tum바지 고고래 해서지 너스고 대지 자와 지레 제기하시도 가사 차상란 말에 자주 군주스나 접수도 점주기 접수도 점주 키일인데는 점주기 납절 라바티 냠는지가 가사 결혼 중이다 내가 가는 제베이네 다 군주스나 템비 텐데 도시 제거래 해서지 정말
Here, a sentence such as this is open to possible misuse, a possible wrong interpretation. Someone thinking that, oh, it says here, whatever activities, and it says, whatever needful purpose. For example, this mosquito that's annoying me so, or this thing that is a mind that I want to take. Well, maybe I go for refuge beforehand, and then it's not so bad. This is definitely a wrong way to think. Rather, we should be aware of the overall context, which is that this is a refuge training for someone who has gone for refuge to the three jewels. Therefore, this should be a training taken with integrity, that one is turning to the three jewels before any activity, requesting their ongoing inspiration and guidance, so that whatever we are doing is done in accordance with the three jewels to whom we are going for refuge. So therefore, activities such as killing or stealing and so forth would be clearly excluded. And rather, through the inspiration of the three jewels, one should turn away from such activities. So we should be very clear. Whatever activities refers to the activities of the wide variety that we engage in, which all should be virtuous. And whatever needful purpose that we engage in, all should be virtuous. So therefore, don't allow the afflictions in the mind to deceive one. Keep your integrity. Act in accordance with the three jewels, and don't misuse what is presented in the Dharma.
jen mado den dan shi madina de yung marwa 지선 다 소수기 내가 가르치는 예리야 안 dembe 진주 건조스만 접수 줘야다 소수기 내가 지도 갑라 아니 시신기 다지는 야 건조스면 납자단 거기도 거기민도 셈비게 도시는 시신 제바지 하고 와지 디나하고를 남사는 dembe 진제야 건조스면 납자단 베게 토네 어두시네게 자워주고에도 자고로와다.
For those who are following the Wednesday night teachings on Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva's way of life, what is being presented here will be very clear to you how to do this, because the training that we are looking at in the 5th chapter is that of on vigilance and mindfulness. So thereby, watching your mind throughout the day, before one will be continuously watching, is my mind in accordance with the Dharma? Is the resulting speech or physical behavior in accordance with the Dharma? So in this way, one is always aware of one's mental process, not getting overly caught up in the conversation one is having or the physical activity one is engaging in, or even the thought process one is engaging in. But one's always aware of the quality of one's state of mind. Is that quality of the state of mind in accordance with the 3 jewels or not?
안다 대다단 지수 팀비 건축이 추바서 제이시대 지산 대다의 지수 팀바시대다 지산 대다 상계 건조단 기능 건조 그런 중에 냠랭 강 남아 나신지의 관화들이 도시 건축이 공부다 마가와 진행을 하지 냠랭 제고리에서 대다의 지수 팀바시대 대다 상계 건조단 주요 건조 그런 중에 냠마 간에시는 냠랭 제바 나신래가 잘래간에 나와 나신지 건조단 나신 대다 팀비가 가지고 도시는 제고리에서 팀비가 건조 아니 쳐봐서 제이지 내는 건조스물이야 쳐봐 부이다 내게 코로나주기다 내게 제네 건조스물 쳐봐 계시면 야마도 부가나지 먼저 도시는 부고레스 지상 건조스물이 아니 랍자다 미가와 랍제도 팀비도네 아니 내가 제야당 아니 쳐봐 부야 나서 봐 먼저 쳐고레스지.
And this is made explicit in the next part of the sentence, and do what is in agreement with them. So in agreement or in accordance with the teachings of the Dharma. So watching one's mind, one's behavior, physical and verbal behavior, making sure that at all times it is in accordance with the 3 jewels. And then as it continues, and this is where I just added a few words, such as making offerings to the 3 jewels. So one will ensure that one's watching one's mind, taking care of one's mind in explicit virtuous activities, such as making offerings to the 3 jewels, but also in whatever activities one is engaging in or whatever needful purpose, whether it's something explicitly religious, such as making offerings, or whether it is something else, that our mind and therefore our physical and verbal behavior is in accordance with the 3 jewels.
어두시네 지수 튠바시데 안지수 튠바 상계 공원주의 현례 판바단 제와 바시치는 현례 햄을 주바나 주거레스 지사 상계 공원의 인자주 선반남기 파베 강사디기네야 아니 현례 판바다 아니 지게 현례 미네비게 개화주야다 지사 디버 포야로서 봐 개화주디니 랑기 냠는 제셔바디게 현례 제용이 제야다 현례 판도시도 안현 되네게 현례야 semje tamjige san yo ko bon to bi shi chebo puya la so ba dine ke wa ke chim bo ndu bo res dina shin jin de so su ge la ga kan je bi ne shan la mi ne ba da shan le phe bi thwa ni je hwa de ke chim bo le dine za do kon ju semje an ju yin de tar ba tamji kim bo ko bon to bi chil do ndu shin sam da ku wa ke ji ya chebo puya la so ba du che wo le sa ji.
If one proceeds in the way advised here, then you can have confidence that your endeavors are accumulating virtue, that you are not harming, but you are being of benefit. And in particular, when one has a free moment to generate an appropriate motivation, such as just before making offerings to the 3 jewels, generate a motivation that through this virtuous endeavor, through this virtue I'm creating, may all beings come under the direct care of the 3 jewels, and be open to the guidance that they receive and strive to cultivate that guidance and thereby progress towards attaining a state freed from suffering.
And
the text continues, but it is utterly inappropriate to rely in any way at all on what is in agreement with them, such as certain practices in the Burn tradition, Consequently, you should just trust in the jewels at all times.
다 대다다 믿음 바세데 지상 다 상예 저기 점료 건조숨 대다다 믿음 바세 대다다 믿음 바세데 다 되게 다와당 아니 죄비게 전에 믿음 비게다 도시네 상예 건조숨의 이마체 바제 대다다 믿음 바 건조숨다 믿음 배 다와던 죄비신 믿음 비게 되네 네 본라 소베게다 지기 되네게 템바션이야 도시네 아니 남바 탐치를 되는 미루에 세대다 건조스나 이메 체바 루메 개와진 대술이야 두스네 네 제소다 된제 제교 말해서 믿음 발로 소발라 남바 탐치는 믿음 바세 본라 소바 왜나 디민비가 지게 치료 된바만 보여라 어디서래 기띵교 말해서 되는 미루에 되는 지고 말해서
As it says here, but it is utterly inappropriate to rely anywhere at all on what is not in agreement with them. So what's not in agreement with them being the three jewels, refer to inappropriate to rely on views or conduct or behavior, that are not in accordance with the three jewels. It would be inappropriate to rely on them, such as practices such as certain practices in the Burn tradition. So the Burn tradition referring to the old shamanistic religion of Tibet.
예산다 본라 소바시게 나 줘봐도 믿음바다 양상 본 얘기데 미 지게 디봉 게루 야고지고라다 양상 예마기 본 일직래야 아니 변시도 양지 마르셰프야라 소바 심지 줘봐야라 소바 용고로바 안지게 안디니게 아니 야 건조라 접수 매래와제 하다 루라 젠라 소바 아니지 소야라 소바 용고로 안두시네 제자 디 믿음바제다 디니게 자와 믿음바 상기기 자와디 셴레 체와메바 체와메비기 어두스와 대다 믿음바다 네 믿음바자네 셴레 체위기 최발라 소바디네 제바이나 아지자 믿음바 체고로 인디 멤베다 셴 양식 나바 상기비기 뭐 다메베 따와 다도 주바세 요 말에서 진짜 다음에 봤다와 킬링으로 디 멤버가 전화되게 다음에 봐마 다 요래서 다 킬링으로 디네자 문제자 디네자다 다 미팅 바샤고래 디네자다 지수기 지수 잡아 있나 가르쳐 그랬으네 델레 지수다 디 템바 있나 안디 지수다 땡요도 네 지게 세위게다 디네기 쳐봐 부야라서 봤다 안디 다도 주바 요래 다 킬링이 켈린데 된 다음에 배타와 켈링 말와 진짜 다음에 또 두고 말 되는 타바토에 연구 말와 되네서 되네기 괜찮로 연구요 봐서 되네서 되 도시네 제수 띵겨 말해서 정말 아직 될이야 안에 어떤 아주 나와로 건도 나와 말에 인자 지겨 말씀 다가 생고 제제 안도시네 띵겨 말해서 순고 말에 데 윤체에 가르세네 소수게다 겹소리 겹소 켈링 겹소 조인자 안 남바 상기비 건조스마 접수 좋아해서 되는래 뒤된지 될이야 이시체 뒤지수 잡아는 소수기다 점르디 동야게 내가 요래서 제가 내년자 아니 어두시네 내가 요바서 될이야 된루고 말해서 지지겨 말해서 김전지 승원을
The Burn tradition in the modern times and the Burn tradition at the time this text was composed are quite different. So in ancient times, the Burn tradition encouraged the making of sacrifices and so forth. So they had, as we have here, certain practices referring to those which are completely contrary to the Dharma, practices that brought direct suffering to others. So, but we should then take this in the broader context, not necessarily just about how the Burn tradition once was, but where other philosophies or religions present conduct or practice that is contrary to the meaning of the Dharma, we should not engage in that. Or where they have views contrary to that of the Dharma, we should not cultivate those views or not follow those views. So the reason not to engage in a conduct that is contrary to the Dharma is it being contrary to the Dharma probably means it's going to be non-virtuous, such as that of making sacrifices. And if one is engaging in non-virtue, not only is one accumulating causes that will lead to more suffering, but you are harming your refuge. And this is a precept or a training to cultivate, to strengthen and stabilize one's refuge. So that would be contrary to the purpose. The purpose of this training, the purpose of refraining from following behavior that is contrary to the Dharma, is that will lead to the degeneration and possible abandonment of one's refuge. Similarly, if one follows views or cultivates views that are contrary to the Dharma, such as views on there being a self. So if one is cultivating a view or following a view or being influenced by a view that presents that there is a soul or a self, that then is contrary to the Dharma view of selflessness, which will then, by cultivating this view, will serve as an obstacle to one coming to understand selflessness and thereby be an obstacle to one gaining liberation from suffering. So this is the reason to refrain from engaging in certain practices or views that are not in agreement with the three jewels. It's not about bias. It's not about superiority and inferiority. It is about, as a Buddhist who's wanting to stabilize and strengthen one's refuge in the three jewels so that one can gain liberation from suffering and help others to do so as well, one needs to refrain from engaging in practices that are contrary to the three jewels or views which are not in accordance with the three jewels. The final sentence, consequently, you should trust in the three jewels at all times. So this, in the context of this entire outline, whatever activities you engage in, whatever your purpose, honor the three jewels and make requests to them, abandoning all worldly methods. Consequently, you should trust in the three jewels at all times.
ane konjo sumla kyapsu dhuwe ishi na ichi cheche konjo sumgi se tuburiye sembe ichi chegora la yondu tanganzo liya kabriyo ya chik chuyagi norayagi da sosugi che mogo che konjo sumgi sosugi kanga digi chasan san chi tuburiye sembe ke samlo korona di digo mara di jidin goba bodyo bada jiwa sosugi che mogo ba shenda chigi chasan di sosugi kanga se che dunga tamche se che digi tuburiye sembe samtana Bendigo, di samdana de mare, some conscious me segre, some be each year or said, dinner each year had mare.
Here, it's been very clearly encouraged to have a deep and abiding trust in the three jewels at all times. But one shouldn't misunderstand thinking that merely by me having faith in the three jewels, that all my problems will go away. This is not in reality how it works. So there's such presentations in religions that assert a creator God, that through praying to them and having faith, one's problems will go. But that is not how it can work in reality.
Sanje konchu dungiri de manowa da machuwa dungiri sebege da dele yishi shayadi dungiri sebe yishi shayadi dire da denigi dungi nyuba de sanje yore sanje liya tuksewa yuwa zinga dungiri sebege yishi shayadi jikdire da denigi nga zuki nyamlin chebi kabla ya da chu konchu shayadi nga zuki nyamlin che ko sanje dum sheba dile ya 소주기 냠는지 배주지 개와도 냠는 제바이나 소주기라 람딘지 규래 끼기래 이개발할 때는 소주기 고된지 규래 끼 마음반의 소주기라 최고지 규래 끼기래 선배기 투브래 선배다 땡땡 끼기래 선배 이시체네 딩의 최고지 등의 규래 개발 지기 선배게다 기 투브래 개발 지기 선배 이시체야 되다 네 이시체래 난 되네기 최고지 상기기 람딘지 집에 람니기 lamdi nga zu gyule kye de na nga zu nyamlen jebe kabla ta geningo 저기 로 지기리 geningo 저기 로 집에 제투에 누버 요레스 지기리 에셈베다 제투에 누버 요레 anga zu 지기리 에셈베게 셈딩기 이시제 되리다 뢰케데 본주스므로 뢰케다데 간스 케워레라나 대기 주위에 동화세계 탑람 람 마노와디 산유군주 산지기 땡그리 셈베 이체 랑기 디템발라 때는 냠는 제바들라 내 로지게 기능 거죠 로지기리 셈베 이치티 셈딩기 이제 르케야 데네 디 냠는 제발라 때네 두세 람딩이 귤레 고텐데 데 마오바는 이 귤레 냠는 제도 이 귤레 람딩의 고텐의 귤레 레요도 네 타르바세딩이 길레도 코르웨 동안 때데 저기리 세제 제가 데네 예상해디 에 데네게 냠는 지 투그레 데네게 최고조 등의 냠는 지기인 데네 제바는 귤레기 요도 아니 그에 동안 타달을 저기리 셈비제산 강한세 투그레 셈비게 이시에를 디리다 먼저 숨라 가서래 가지고 디니게 르케오레 세도 르케야 디니레 지사 디니 자다 르케야데 두스 르케가 디리 맞아 소수게 맞제바지 생기 건조 지기리 세 르케다네 말이다 이시데 답심 딩기 이시에 들어와 내 메케와라네 다 지기나 메나세 도와를 주는 로 미케와라다 산데 셈딩기 이시에 차오
So this word, correctly translated as trust, is the less common word for trust, and so it would be best translated perhaps as you should have deep trust in or heartfelt trust in the three jewels. So it's a particularly emphatic term. So to talk then about having a heartfelt trust, or another word, having faith in the three jewels, what this actually means is that one has come to, particularly through gathering knowledge and having reflected on that knowledge, to recognize that the Buddha taught the complete and unmistaken path to liberation from suffering. And he did so out of his great compassion. So recognizing this then, one has a deep, heartfelt trust in the Buddha, what he taught, and his greatly accomplished practitioners. So the three jewels. But also, there's an understanding that alone will not lead us to liberation. Because of having this deep, heartfelt trust, one is open and receptive to the teachings of the Buddha and the guidance of the Sangha jewel. This means we also understand that we have to apply ourselves. There are two sides to this interdependency. There is that the Buddha and the teachings of the Buddha and the accomplished practitioners, and then there's the other side. So there's the three jewels, and then there's the other side. That is the practitioner being open and receptive to that guidance. And being open and receptive to that guidance means one wants to hear, and one takes what one is hearing and integrates it through ongoing reflection. So the role that faith plays for us is that it makes us open and receptive. This means that the words enter us and touch us. Our heart being open and receptive, we're not merely gathering knowledge. We are gathering knowledge, but it's not dry intellectual knowledge. But we are cultivating it through reflection so that it has an impact on our way of thinking and therefore our physical and verbal behavior. And in this way, through faith and being open and receptive, we are turned away from the distractions that so overwhelm us, and we come to apply ourselves ever more to cultivating the Dharma within. So again, the three jewels we recognize have the power and capacity to guide us, but we also, through understanding that, we understand that our role in this isn't passive. There is an interdependent relationship, being open and receptive to their guidance and enacting that guidance, cultivating it within our mind, recognizing that that is the way that we will actually cultivate the Dharma jewel within us, become a member of the Sangha jewel, and eventually a member of the Buddha jewel. This is the process by which we'll come to cultivate true cessations and true paths.
Alright, that is the nine word the language of Carresenadiri, the conscious Mara, conscious Matthews Dorje, and also Suki, Gabriel Yamlin, Jayadu, that Rangi, Japanashi, the Shensimja Tamje, Dewa the Dumi to a Chibari, Jita Simja Tamje, who don't have a choke of water, Simje, Shensimja Dunga, the Ninji, Sempi Ninji Gaje, Susu Nubi Kanjo Tonia, and the Shensimja Najilia, Jendalaya, and Jamdra to do serious and Pango Church, and then Jamdra Jehadi to some dinner in the race and those more rich and particular Jamdra Giju, then the Jamdra Labshala Lavia, love to sin, part to see you, as the Nisis Jifundua, and the Suzuki Java, Karachevina, Suzuki Chujogi, Java, Karachevina, Tambo, no conscious like just to Jamdra Che, no conscious of the Yishi, Jesha, Suzuki gave Javada, Javin Yamin, Karachevina, Dushin. Dukure, Sizada, Gonjosumgi, Sanjo Conchata, Chogonjo, Koronzuki, Yamlin, Tumba, General Yamlin, Chisrum, Dedang, Conjugi Gata, Yamlin, the Mitumbe, Jol, Jigio Mare, those Yamlin Chekore, Sechik. And the names are young to do sin Yamlin, Suzuki, Jamdo Gonjosum, Kaling, Demro Cheva in the Nigi, Sanji, Gonjosum, the Mitumbe, Anzuki, Shaniki, Jesu Zhang. And the conscious Lu Mikawa, Shangi Chisu Chang, and Dishi, Jigio Mares, Zanki, Sosora, the conscious Luke Ores, same dingy, Luke Ores, Yamlenchita to Sresh Chores, and the nigger Luke said, and then don't have to be Droyat and Digi to be a tablam did that to Masaya Chimney. Dingiri, simply the thing, Nuba, you're the Dingiri, Dim machine about the nigger about Shazan, Din Tuba, the Nuba. Tingis Michia, and the Sosuki Yamlin Jeva la, and the Roti, Robochi and the Kidungo, Machine Bala, Shebarcha, the Dinig Yamlin Kidungo, Rochigri, same dingy Ichia. That's Sanji Lobdunje, and the Kidungo, Rochi, the Sosuki Yamlin Jeodu, and Sosuki Lamden according to the Dending Kigri, Sempige. She's not the Jeodu, and then I call it. No, don't have to Turi, Sempic Lucian, Ishi or Ishi on Dusin that Yamlelia, Sanji, Lamdinji, Chipigata, Dibon Kurubi, Yamlenji had the Bejuage in the Tundiche or Essage, and then you would in Sungur down to Diringi, she had to get some Donati.
Finally, just to summarize some of the key points that we raised tonight. So we saw here about you should trust in the jewels at all times. So this then refers to that at all times one should carry around refuge in your heart. That this refuge that one has should influence one at all times. In particular, in our context of Mahayana refuge, we should carry around a tender and caring attitude for others, having our heart always open and receptive to the needs of others, wanting to help them, being determined not to harm beings in any way. This particular refers to ensuring that our mind is always one of love and compassion towards others, that we don't have minds of criticizing and complaining and any kind of harmful aggression towards others, but rather have an attitude that is caring for them, wanting to benefit them. And we saw a key way to benefit them is to encourage those with interest in going for refuge. To bring that about, one oneself needs to follow this advice of having one's refuge influence one at all times, having trust in the jewels at all times. Because if one is then acting in accordance with the Dharma at all times, not in a way that is superficial, but really where one's mind is being transformed in the direction of the Dharma, this is the way to have a positive impact on others. This is a way to be an example of the three jewels to others. And in this way, their interest in the Dharma may well grow. Moreover, as we saw in the first part, to recognize, in particular, beings such as the Sangha jewel, the Arya Bodhisattvas, they have capacities well beyond what we can even conceive of, capacities that seem unimaginable, impossible to us. But recognize just how far developed they are. They have developed true paths and true cessations in their continuum. They are radically developed beings, so that they are able to do things like we heard the first part of the talk, sending hundreds of thousands of emanations, all with thousands of arms and so forth. This is possible because of how radically transformed they are. They are very different from ourselves. So set out as a determination, wherever I can, may I be of assistance to these great beings in the world, whoever they are. May I act in accordance with their best wishes, and thereby may I help fulfill their aspirations of guiding all beings, myself and all beings, to the state of liberation. And all the virtue that I accumulate, may it help bring about the fulfillment of their heartfelt wishes, which is that every suffering being gains a state freed of suffering. So in this way, we generate a determination to become bodhisattvas ourselves, and through following the example, become Arya bodhisattvas and eventually Buddhas too. So that in brief is some of the key points that we looked at tonight. Then thank you. Then we can conclude there for tonight.